Carolyn Dube here. What's the play for today? Well, today I have got a complete fail to share with you, and I'm so excited about this. Now, you might be wondering why I would be happy when something didn't work, because when that happens, it's absolutely an oops, and something that came from it, well, made me even happier than what I was planning to do. Now, my original plan was to use two supplies that I like together: stencils and image transfer. And I thought, oh, this would be so great if I could get them to play together. And I couldn't, but I could. Check it out. So my plan was to take something colorful like this and do it in the shape of butterflies, but without any fancy cutting out or fussy cutting or that kind of stuff. I thought an image transfer would just give me the exact shape of the butterfly using the stencil, and it would be a quick and fast way to do this. There were so many possibilities, so many different ways these butterflies could look thanks to this process. To get it started, I simply cut it into about 4 pieces. But where did this image come from? It's actually a collection here of 9 of the sparks of inspiration that I've sent out over the years in my newsletter. And I've sent a bunch out because there is a new spark each and every week. And if you'd like this exact printout with all 9 of them put together like this, I've got a link down below for you so you can get that. And it will also get you signed up for my newsletter so you can have a new one every week. So now let's do an actual image transfer. I'm using the InkAid process, and what this is transferease solution that I'm putting on very generously to this cardstock. So generously that it will actually leak through the backside of the cardstock. That's why I've got that tin foil or something non-absorbent back there to keep it from getting onto other things. So once you've got the stencil on there, then you need to get your transfer film on top of that. You want to make sure that it's the printed side down, and you want to get good contact between that transferease solution and that transfer film. So I'm just going to use a brayer here and roll it down with a light amount of pressure. I'm not pushing very hard. I'm just making sure that there's good contact, especially around the edges. Now, I knew the edges were going to be a little bit challenging, but I had no idea how challenging. Once you've got it on there, best practice is to wait about 2 minutes before you lift up that transfer film. I have no sense of time, so I have to set a timer on my phone. If you're new to InkAid image transfers, you might have a bunch of questions about how this process works. Like, how do you mix up the transferease solution? And how do you know if your printer works with this process? Well, I've got those answers and a whole bunch more for you, all in a full-length video that's designed to walk you through step by step everything you need to know to get started doing these transfers. And I'll have a link down below for you on that. So now the 2-minute timer has gone off. I'm going to gently lift this up with anticipation of this perfect butterfly under there. And yeah, you can tell the edges, they were a problem. The image transfer didn't go all the way to the edge. And when I lifted up the stencil, it just did not look anything like what I'd hoped. Okay, so that one didn't work at all, but I thought maybe it was just because it was my first one. I'd get a little bit better on the next one, and so I went and did another one. You'll never guess what happened to that. I followed the same process, waited my 2 minutes, and now it is time to lift up that transfer film and see what happens. And you'll notice on this one, the edges, it really didn't go all the way to the edges, even more so than the last one. What I found is no matter how many of these that I did, this kind of thing happened. It was a complete fail in terms of what I was trying to do. But when that happens, I simply say oops, because this is an outstanding opportunity presenting suddenly. Before I go on to the next step, to the opportunity that came about because of this oops, I want to let this dry. And when this dries, see all that wet that's around the butterfly? That will evaporate out. Now there is a little bit of yellow around the butterfly. That will not evaporate because that is actually paint that the transferease solution pulled off of my stencil. But it's also not going to be a problem either. Now that everything's all dry, I'm actually going to put a mask on top of that butterfly. The stencil that I used, called Butterfly Journeys, that I designed for over at StencilGirlProducts.com, it includes 4 butterfly masks in it. And what a mask allows me to do is protect what's underneath it from paint. So I'm going to put a layer of black paint around this, but that mask is going to protect everything underneath it. Now I'm brayering on to get the bulk of it done quickly, but you'll see how around the edge it's like the brayer's not getting right up to the edge of the stencil. That's simply because that mask is raised a little bit higher than the paper. So to get that little edge, I'm going to bring in a cosmetic sponge. And notice how as I'm doing this, I'm kind of pulling away from the butterfly. That way I can have as crisp of an edge as possible. I don't want paint to run underneath it. I want a really crisp edge. Another thing that I'm doing to help with that is I'm also using a heavy body paint. And that's the fancy way of saying just a really thick paint. The image transfer, when it didn't go all the way to the edge, when that felt like a total fail, now became the thing that I love the most about this. But it was also something that kind of nagged and pulled at me as I was doing more of these butterflies. You see, I went and put black around all the other ones I'd been experimenting with. But that white space, well, it's a thing that I have. If there's white space, part of me wants to put something in it. Now, at the end of the video, I'll share with you what happened to that white space on each one of these butterflies. But I also had another idea while I was doing this. What if I did 4 butterflies at once? I mean, the stencil has 4 butterflies on it, so why not give it a try, all 4 at once? And this is where a little overconfidence came into play. Because when you're doing 4 of these, it is a little different than doing just 1, and I didn't really compensate for it. So I'm putting on the transferee solution, and I think I'm being generous with it the same way that I was when I was doing just 1 single butterfly. But really what I needed was even more of it on there. Because in the time it took me to get it over that whole page, some of it is starting to evaporate. And I could tell because the paper didn't look nearly as juicy. So I tried to come in and rescue it and put a little bit more on there, just adding what I thought would be enough. But between you and me, I probably could have put more on there. Because the more time that I'm messing around with this, more of it's evaporating. Because this stuff is mixed with 91% isopropyl alcohol, and that stuff can evaporate pretty quickly. And again, here I am messing around with it more and more instead of getting the image transfer on there. Because you see, if I don't have enough of that transferee solution on there, it's not going to transfer as much of the image that's on the transfer film. Since you know how this process works, I'm really going to speed up the camera here. And you can see that there's a little bit hanging over the edge at the bottom. I decided I'm not even going to cut that off. I'm just going to leave it there because that little bit of it will transfer onto that butterfly and then I'll have some stuff around it. We'll just see what happens with it. But once I've got it all on there, then it's wait 2 minutes before I start pulling it up. Again, because you've seen me do this, you know to do it slowly and gently. I've sped up the camera a little bit here. Oh, and just so you know, the scrap pieces, the leftover bits here, if there's any area that hasn't had the transferee solution on it, you betcha I'm going to use that part again. I'm going to use those edges, those outlines, that kind of thing. That way, every bit of the transfer film gets used. One of the things I really enjoy about this technique is how each and every butterfly will come out differently than the others. Each one is unique. There'll be a different placement of the white around it, a different amount of the white. That way, each one of the butterflies is unique. Now that image transfer solution, the transferee solution, that did pull off some of the paint from the back of the stencil. Stencil's a little sticky right now, but as soon as that alcohol evaporates, it won't be sticky at all. The page is now completely dry, and I have to say right now, it looks pretty ugly. But that's the thing, sometimes just putting one more layer on something can really change how it looks. So I'm going to take the masks, and all 4 of these masks come with that Butterfly Journey stencil from over at StencilGirl. I'm going to get those masks on there to protect the image transfer below, and then I'm just going to put that black paint all around it. And while I'm doing that, I've got a favor to ask. If you've been enjoying this video, I'd so appreciate it if you gave it a thumbs up. And of course, if you know somebody that you think would enjoy this video, I'd love it if you'd share it with them. And of course, if you want to see more of my videos, you can check them all out on my YouTube channel. And if you hit that subscribe button, you'll know as soon as I've got a new video out. Now, last time I was doing the black all around the butterfly masks, I was using a brayer and a cosmetic sponge. But this time I'm doing all cosmetic sponge. Why is that? Well, it's because I like the look of a cosmetic sponge for this. It's got a little bit more movement to it. You can see the marks from the sponge. I kind of like that look with the 4 butterflies. It's completely personal preference. You absolutely can apply the paint any way that you want. Oh, and yeah, you can use any color you want too. I absolutely could leave these butterflies just the way they are. But that white space, man, it's just staring at me. It is taunting me. It is saying, do something with me. And yep, I am going to put something in there. I'm not going to put any color in there because there's plenty of color happening with the image transfer there in the center of the butterflies. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do some journaling in those white places. Now the journaling, you might say, Carolyn, kind of hard to read. That's true. I'm doing what I call scribble journaling. And this is where I'm thinking real thoughts. I'm actually thinking about butterflies and how they represent change and metamorphosis and growth. And I'm writing what I'm thinking, but I'm not writing in a way that anybody can read it. Not you, not me, nobody. Because see, I feel a lot of pressure about getting the grammar correct and spelling and punctuation, all that stuff. When I do scribble journaling, I don't have any of that pressure. When you're writing around shapes like this, you may find it very helpful to turn the page frequently. That way you get an angle that feels very natural to your own writing. And by the way, I'm doing scribble journaling, but could you write in here legibly so that the words that you're writing could absolutely be read by somebody? You bet. It's completely personal preference with this. And that's one of the things I really, really enjoy about art is that we can each do it in the way that best fits us. Well, thanks so much for joining me for today's play. And just a reminder, if you want to get that free download, the one that I've been using throughout this video, you can get that at the link below, and that will also get you signed up for my newsletter so you can get a new spark of artspiration each and every week. Thanks so much for letting me be a part of your colorful journey.